It's all about nutrient efficiency, right?
Exactly.
I've taught you all the things that you know.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
I'm Sherry Cook. I'm passionate about helping farmers with crop nutrition, and I'm here to help you with your operation.
Like them when they're a little bit higher. We're going to talk about that here today. Welcome to the Big Iron Farm Show. We're thrilled to have a full house here. Obviously, a topic everybody wants to hear about. Thanks for joining us. My name is Don Wick from the Red River Farm Network, and over there we have Jamie Dickerman.
Hello, and thanks for being here. We're glad to have you here, and it's going to be a great discussion about the markets, whether we really want to talk about them or not. We're going to talk about them here. So we got some great analysts with us today. We got Tommy Grisafi, Ag Bull Trading, Gene Graner, Heartland Investor Services, Ray Grabanski, Progressive Ag Services, all here. And we want to let you know, too, we want to welcome your questions. We got a couple microphones out here in the crowd, so flag down one of us in the blue shirts, and we can get you a microphone if you have questions, too. So whenever you have questions, put a hand up, and we'll get out there to you.
So oftentimes when we get to be Big Iron time, we start talking about if there's coming into a low in the market. Probably a question you guys are getting here when you're walking around the show. Both corn and soybeans, where are we and where do you see us going over the next short term? Tommy, you want to start?
We're starting with easy questions,
Yeah.
huh? Well, I know where we are and where we're going, but when I started coming to Big Iron 10 years ago, I would get like, oh my God, we're down. But now seasonally, you just know that this time of year, in the next few weeks, next few months, we're going to have the most grain we're going to have in America, regardless. But it's a unique situation, and it's an extremely unique situation. So what you see on TV and what's happening are two different things. What I've noticed from just like these gentlemen know this area very well, and when you watch national TV shows or something, they oftentimes farm broadcasters or farm media, national farm media, very much talks Illinois and Iowa, and they kind of forget what's going on up here. So we have the most unique situation, I think, anywhere in the country, the widest basis, the greatest amount of risk anywhere. Maybe someone else will try to raise their hand and say they got it worse somewhere else, but with that, we'll see what happens. I do think the government's going to, give a payment, but if the government tells you right now they're giving every farmer in America $1, they're going to do it for the farmer who's farming 2 miles from the Mississippi River, who's going to sell it at even with the board. They're not going to make up the money. And last time this happened, Trump 1.0, we didn't make up the money of the basis. And that's really where the damage is. So we could sit here all day, talk about futures and spreads and everything else, but the people I work with who like to speculate or like to trade, they're baffled that beans are this high, and the actual move didn't come in that the futures market went to 950. It's actually that the cash market went to the lower 8s. And that's something I think all of us, unless we all own grain bins, are going to have a hard time. I guess it's a good time to be in the bagger business out there. I think I could sell a few bags, but it's very challenging.
Guys, what are your thoughts?
I'll pick it up from Tommy where he's talking about. Obviously, we have this really bad basis right now because no beans are going out of the Pacific Northwest. I'll take the bull by the horns here, so to speak, or the elephant in the room, and that is China. And everybody's all paranoid over China playing their games. I think you need to understand big picture what's going on here. There's a fear that China won't be buying any beans from us forever. But I think we must remind everybody that we're on a slow boat to China, pun intended, to nowhere. Since China entered the WTO, we've been selling less beans every year, no matter which president it has been. That probably, and I'm just being fictitious, but in 20, 30 years, we could be selling no beans to China if Trump never existed. So let's just take care of that off the table right now and look at what President Trump is trying to do. First off, yield. I'm not hearing the optimistic yields out there that can make 53 plus bushel to the acre. So on a yield-wise, the math is easy. Based off of what we know now for harvested acreage, we're at 80 million acres. So if we take a bushel off, that is 80 million bushels. Well, the carryout with China still in there on buying beans is at 290 million. So we get closer down to 200 million bushels on the end carryout. Well, that's beans well north of $12, okay, before we start talking basis. And with China, they're obviously the big player. One thing we know is they're going to have to, I can just say it this way, the communists hate our guts. And even though they hate our guts, they will have to buy some beans from us in December or January, whether President Trump can push President Xi in late October or not, because they'll need to maintain their flows into China. If you ever travel to China, watch what's going on. They maintain a schedule of beans coming in. Well, the Brazilian beans will be done coming in, and they're going to need to maintain until the next crop comes online. That means there's going to be likely some buying from China. Granted, not what we want to see unless there's a trade deal, a phase 2, so to speak. They're probably going to have to come in and buy anywhere from 8 to 12 million metric tons of beans. That will firm our Pacific Northwest basis up, give us a pop here as far as the Northern Plains is concerned, because the beans go out west. We don't have the advantage of the Gulf, which, by the way, is drying up for the Mississippi because they're dry weather at the moment. Having said all that, if we get through the October crop report, because that's D-Day, that's when the USDA has to really come clean. They always start high and then fade off. And if we get a lower number in September, statistically, we're lower in October. And if that October number can be a surprise, especially on corn, putting it under 184 bushels to the acre, we've got carryout numbers that all of a sudden go, whoa, we aren't as flush as we thought we were. The world may be, as far as Brazil planting more corn, but the world stocks use carryout on corn is below 10%. And if that's with the U.S. included. And if we were to somehow find a way to lower production by beans by a minimum, easily can be done, 80 million bushels, shifting this carryout down and maybe even 2 bushels. All of a sudden, China is a threat, becomes less a threat. And then I'll leave it with this before I get to Ray. On President Trump's trade wars, if you want to bet against Trump, you're really betting against a guy who has survived 2 assassination attempts, 4 lawfares that were all false and beat them all. Since he's become president, on his trade promises, he's been writing executive orders that have been challenged in court, winning left and right in the Supreme Court. And what he's left with right now, the big ones, is the Ukrainian-Russian war and, of course, the Chinese trade war. Well, you want to bet against a guy that's been pretty much batting pretty good. And I'll leave you with this. Who has read President Trump's book, The Art of the Deal? I have. You know what the secret of the art of the deal is? Chaos. He keeps the other side dancing at all times. Well, what was the trade war? 10% tariff, 20% fentanyl tariff. Oh, let's go to 60%. Oh, heck, let's make it 145%. No, we'll back it down to 30%. Well, you got 90 days, and then we're going to go back up. Do not let the other side stand on their feet and get comfortable. Keep them bouncing all the time till they get to the point where, you know what, let's just sign this thing and get it over with. That's the art of the deal. And he's certainly got chaos in play right now. Ray, I'm sorry, a little windy.
So, yeah, I was enjoying that presentation, Gene, actually.
Little history lesson. Yeah.
And I think that both of these guys made some pretty good points. And let me try and summarize that quickly for you, if you missed some of that. Because prices suck here for soybeans right now. They're horrible. The basis is horrible. And the futures are, you know, maybe they're higher than they should be if we had a 53.6 bushel crop like USDA said in September, but I don't think anybody believes that. Our yield model is 52.8 right now. I think that USDA might end up a bushel too high, and as they summarize, that's about 80 million bushel cut. And if you noticed it or not, a year ago we were forecasting 500 million bushel carryout soybeans. Now USDA is at 290, minus 80, 200 million bushel carryout might be higher than $12 beans. So back up a little further, we've gone down in prices for 3 years now, pretty much straight. We've had 1 year, 25, where prices have been stagnant. Okay? Think about that. We probably have the next 3 years, I'm pretty sure beans will go to $15, $16 by the end of Trump's term. And here's why. Gene already mentioned that. We have no trade with China. China's not buying any soybeans. That also means they have a lot of beans to buy. Why aren't they buying beans now from the United States? Because we have a Ukraine war that we're trying to wind down, and we have been unsuccessful doing it. China is not on our side. If you notice, there's this organization called BRICS. Brazil, who sells a lot of beans, Russia, India, China, and many countries have been joining that. That's our trade bloc that the United States and Western countries fight against. And I'm telling you, China is not on our side there. We need to solve this Ukraine war, which Russia is aligned with China, and then we're going to write an agreement with China after all this chaos is done. And that's going to be pretty bullish soybeans. I tell you, the last thing I'd want to be is sold out of soybeans at harvest and not own anything back. I talk to a lot of people that have no storage, and not only that, you're going to get a crappy basis at harvest. And to answer the other question, has corn bottomed? I don't think corn has, but I think soybeans are closer to bottoming, and I think soybeans have a lot more bullish outlook. I think the corn yield is closer to 191 or 192, and I think we have negative news in corn. Plus, we switched 6 million acres of soybeans to corn this year. Don't forget that.
Well, we
Question,
got the big report coming out on Friday. I don't know how big it's going to be, guys. I'm wondering if you think there's going to be any big surprises in the USDA report, or ho-hum, what do you think?
September is not known for big surprises. August is always just trade data. It's called the green score, or whatever the crop condition report is. They try to compare that to previous years and give you a number. This one will have more plot tests in it for this report, because that's all you really can get, and the yields out of the South. But since when does Arkansas produce corn like Iowa? You know, we can't compare that. Ray, I might probably take a difference with you on the corn. What I'm hearing on the sweet corn is that it's off, and test cutting in some areas, southern Illinois, beans have been coming in lower than last year. But wherever there are some yield reports that we can get, are implying not on par with last year, actually a little bit less. And my big hang-up with the extra 6 million acres of corn is that when they popped, the August report brought that extra 2+ million acres of corn in, if you look at where they were, it wasn't like it was Iowa, Illinois. It was Missouri, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, North Dakota was bumped a little bit, but it was none of the big producing states were in this, where you get that yield in the 200+ that pulls a national up. You know, if you look at what the yields are out of Arkansas and Missouri, they're not 200 bushel, you know, and so that's a pull down on the national average. And the disease thing, I'm hearing more and more about the rust, and a rust, you know, you can crack the cobs right now, do your kernel count and your length and rows, but rust, as we get drying down, and drying down fast, it can take 15% or more off of production. So I'm on the little other end of the spectrum. I think the corn yield could be under 184, and I'll leave one caveat and give it to Tommy, that, you know, for 7 years they had been saying the corn yield would be above 180 bushels per acre for 7 years in a row. We can never do it. So this year, will this be the year we go over 180 bushels per acre? You know, probably. But with the extra 2 million acre that was popped in August, all the less inferior acres, that could be the surprise guess there. So I'm probably in the more low 180s, which definitely brings our carryout below 2 billion. And let's not forget, last year at this time, the new crop carryout was over 2 billion bushels. Remember that? That's where it's at right now, 2.1 plus. And as I've been stating for 10 years in a row to our client base at heartlandinvest.com, is that every year, the USDA starts too low on their export agenda, not by a factor of 10 to 15 million bushels, but by a factor of a minimum 100 million bushels. So I can sit here today and say, statistically behind us, when we get a year down the road, the USDA will have increased their export demand by 100 million bushels. And why not? Because we're getting new customers we haven't seen from before. When's the last time you heard of Morocco buying corn, Spain buying corn? We have European partners buying our corn that have never bought corn before. So with that, I think this carryout over 2.1, and now again, maybe the October crop report is going to be the D-Day. And if it's north of 186, well, it'll be a stopper for a while. But I'm in the camp that we bottomed corn market early because the perception is so big. I mean, basically August crop report, they said massive yield, massive acreage, and okay demand. So I think we can only get better from there. And so the board, I think, at 392 is a pretty important V bottom low. Look at a chart. Corn doesn't V bottom very often. Tommy?
The other state was Kansas.
Okay, thank
with
you.
600.
They were the one, yeah.
All
Which they're going to
states-
have a big yield this year because they've been in a drought.
They've had
summer fallow basically for 2 years.
And also to add to that magic math, we had something on the financial side. We're talking grains and cattle, but on the financial side, the government just came out a few hours ago and redid the unemployment numbers for, I think they went back a year, maybe 2 years. And so they did a jobs revision. It's the agency that releases that data. Data is called the BLS. Sounds a lot like BS, but they did a massive revision. So the faith in the unemployment number that comes out the first Friday of every month, if the first Friday's a Friday, if the first is a Friday, they just pretty much came out and said after years that number's been wrong. So I had not taken a whole lot of trust in what the USDA says or what the gentlemen up here say. In my world, all I care about is what my clients can get at their local market. So I own a seat at the board. I can trade. If I think the yield's 175 and I'm bullish, I could sit here for 2 hours and give you every scenario how we could profit off that. The problem is on when the government's going to tell the truth or their version of the truth or what we thought to be true. All the things they said about Iowa and Russ is really true, but the cash markets across country, it's not just North Dakota, where I spend a lot of time in Indiana. We are extremely low cash markets, and that is not a sign that we're running out of grain. So there's also a lag. We're sitting here arguing about what the yield is this year. We're forgetting to remind the room that there's still a lot of people in here holding grain from last year. And so some of your grain just had a birthday, congratulations. It's not exactly something you should celebrate, but not with interest rates 3 times higher than where they were a few years ago. So these scenarios may play out, but the timing of it has to be impeccable.
I'm curious, I want to swing back to China if I can. It was, what, a week or so ago when Xi hosted the leaders from India and Brazil, or Russia, Putin and Modi were there. It seems like China's trying to flex its muscles on the world stage a little bit, maybe a position the U.S. typically was holding. Do you see that that has some long-term implications for American agriculture or not?
I think Ray really hit on it too with the BRICS thing. They're trying to put something together, and these SDRs or whatever through the World Bank, creating maybe a digital currency that they can work with and make trade flow more freely with them. There's no question, it's world competition for grains. But what's ironic about this year versus other years, it's a big world, and there's always something going wrong somewhere weather-wise. One man's poison is another man's gold. It's ironic that we've gone a whole year and no wheat crop. There's a harvest every quarter of the year. Unlike corn, we harvest wheat every quarter of the year. That's why when wheat pops, she pops hard and fast, and it's over with. It's really over with because here comes another hemisphere and another harvest every quarter. And so we've gone basically 4 quarters, and wheat has not suffered a setback in production anywhere. We thought maybe Russia was going to have a problem, but it kind of one hand washes the other. There is a drought in Ukraine. Their corn got hurt pretty bad there, but the wheat, you got to remember, 95% of all the wheat grown in Ukraine is winter wheat. So it's not about what the weather so much is about getting it going. It's already going. It's a matter of getting it off to the finish. And so with that, when hasn't world competition been an issue? It's been going on for 30, 40 years. Bottom line is that China entered the World Trading Organization 25 years ago. And do they fight fair? No, they never have. And so why should we let what we call free market capitalism, let them just run roughshod on them when they do their games? And so reality check is, when they entered the WTO, and you can check this, when they did, they put a 6 or 7% tariff on U.S. beans to favor South American beans with the intent they were going to help build out the infrastructure, which they are in South America, to pretty much avoid the U.S. and take everything from there. So a stopgap has to come in here somehow, some way, just like the EU, the European community. They work together, trade deals. We'll buy from you, buy this from us. Why can't we think differently and maybe put something on the line again, like a phase 2.0, and hold China to the line? If you want to sell to us, you got to buy from us as well. And so
I think that I think your question, Don, was about those 4 countries and what they're trying to do. I think it's important to understand where we're at in the negotiation stage. We've got Ukraine and our China trade deal. That's what matters to American farmers. And we're in the middle of trying to solve this Ukraine war. There's a lot of positioning and there's a lot of frankly, there's a lot of BS out there in all the media, and all the countries are playing these games. China's game there was to flex, and they're not buying any U.S. soybeans. They're flexing their muscle. They want that war over. They want a sided trade deal with the U.S. So what are we really talking about in Ukraine? We're talking about Russia's already taken 4 provinces. There's a few areas they haven't finished yet, but they're going to if it takes long enough. And the longer it takes, the United States has cut off our money. They're gonna lose faster and faster on the battlefield. And now our weapons help, but we're not sending them the money. So this is going to get resolved in probably the next 6 months. China is going to sign a trade deal with the United States. Why? They don't necessarily, they would rather buy from Brazil, but they want to sell United States consumers products, the stuff we buy at Walmart and Sam's and all that stuff. And they don't want to pay big tariffs. It's worth, if you look at the dollars, to buy the entire U.S. soybean crop from us every year is nothing compared to the tariff dollars they're paying. That gets resolved. I think we have a bullish situation in soybeans developing. In contrast on corn, I don't think you've got it. I think our chances of having a 182 bushel corn crop this year, I think we have just as good a chance of having a 200 bushel crop. So I think that crop is bigger than we think. I think the problems we developed were later, and I think that that's going to affect soybeans more. And we don't have the acres. The soybeans is going to be the bull market to lead us out of this mess. You have to figure out a way to harvest this crop, put as much of it away as you can, stick it in piles like we can do here in the north, and figure out a way to run your cash flow and get financing for the next year. And there's ways to own grain besides on paper, in a bin, or under a pile with risk, or in bags. And I think any of these 3 gentlemen, myself included, can explain how.
You look deep in thought, Tommy.
Well, it's just that I swear every time we come up this meeting, things look bad, but they get better and better and better. This is usually like a psychological mental load. Not to mention, I went to the Bears-Vikings game last night, and we received an ass kicking, so on home turf. Yeah, that was embarrassing. But I'm happy for you all. We got a Vikings fan back there. And, yeah, so I have to do the walk of shame today. Yeah, we
You
have
looked good for a while.
We look good. Yeah, and then I went.
Don't know what happened.
Like
I
two
don't
games,
good.
yeah.
That makes 2 of us. Yeah, but we're just in a unique spot. That's all. Trading's amazing because I get to work. I'm partnered with a group of people in Nashville who manage a lot of money. One guy manages $300 million. One guy has a personal wealth of $500 million, and I've never seen them so confused in the futures and options market and spreads. So these are really, really, really professional people who are having a hard time. Volumes are starting to dry up a little bit. With Trump brings opportunity, but also people who, like myself, who like to go home and take risk. We're starting to take less risk because we want to sleep well at night. And so we win one day, we lose one day, and some point we realize we're out of control. And I had the opportunity, as you know, to meet Secretary Rollins a week or 2 ago, and they say the right things, but the people up here, what I'm afraid of, and I believe these scenarios are going to happen. I'm afraid some of the farmers are going to run out of money because operatings do, regardless of what a broker, analyst, or anyone says. So there's a cash flow problem. If we could wait, I think if you had 2 years to wait, I think you'd be shocked what you can get for your crop. But I don't think a lot of growers have 2 years to wait.
So Rollins was on Fox News last week and said the golden age of agriculture is just around the corner.
Is that the Republican network or the Democratic one, Fox? I get them confused.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was a really bold statement. I don't know who writes that shit for it, but that was horrible. I mean, that's the type of stuff that's making people angry. It should just be better off to say, listen, we're in a bad spot. Our president, for what Eugene said, this guy's a winner. We don't just win in day one. This is a war. This is a battle. Pick your team. But I do feel like every farmer in America is currently enlisted in the Army or the Navy or the Marines, and you all deserve a medal because in this war, no one's going to get shot, unlike what's happening in Ukraine. and Russia, but every American farmer is taking a bullet on this one. And you're only 1 to 2% of the population. So the 99%, like when President Trump said yesterday, don't worry, I'll get meat prices down. Damn it, he did. They were limit down today. He did that. See, thank you, Mr. President. Ground beef went from $6 to $5.75 now. But you are the 1%, and the 99% voted for lower commodity prices, and they got it.
Can I talk, different subject altogether?
That's what I was thinking about.
I like that, I like that.
Yeah.
CME started a wheat contract this past year, a spring wheat contract that would take delivery here in the Valley to compete against the Minneapolis Grain Exchange. It doesn't seem like it's got any volume. What merit do you see in that contract? Is there, are they trading one off the other? What's your thoughts?
I believe, Eugene, correct me, I think it's officially dried up. It's at zero, okay.
Think about it. There's no puts or calls. You
No,
can't
you
buy
can't, right.
options. And so the option market, as Tommy was just talking
Yeah.
about a little while ago, we think the futures are volume? No. It's the options, spreads, buy a call, sell a call,
Yeah.
sell a put, buy a put. That's where the volume is, but it all has to go against a contract. And that's where the contract keeps its volume going too. Sometimes you see these moves that don't make sense. Well, go see what the option market's doing, then it might make sense. And so with that, there's nothing. Try to buy a call on the spring wheat. You
You
can't.
can't, right.
Which means it's dead.
And on my flight up here after that beating, some of the people on my flight were from the MIAX, the MIAX exchange, and they're up here promoting, their spring wheat contract. But we trade a lot of spring wheat for people, and I've always said it. It's horrible if you're a broker and you put someone in Kansas City wheat when they should be in North Dakota wheat. We have to put them in Kansas City wheat. They're saying buy 100 calls, and I have to. That's the order.
You ain't doing it in Minneapolis.
No. You couldn't get someone to take the
See,
other
here's
side.
the problem that like Tommy's just trying to explain. We grow twice the amount of hard red winter wheat than we do spring wheat. So it's a different animal. When you start looking into planting the crop in the fall, the planting might be up for Kansas and all these states. And so then when the market performs, all of a sudden, like Tommy's just saying, spring wheat takes off, and there you are with the Kansas. It's the dog, because why? There's twice the amount. And so it's hard to, it's truly apples and oranges. You really can't look at them as the same.
So from a market standpoint, that is a great question. I knew you would give one today. Congratulations, Mr. Wick.
Didn't you say?
Jamie, I knew he'd get a zinger. Because it's 2025, and we're going backward. These people need help, and so they come to us and they say, can you help us hedge our wheat or buy it? I unfortunately had to sell wheat off the combine because I'm going to store my beans. I've gotten some of those phone calls. Okay, sell your wheat. Can you buy it back? Sure, I got to buy it in Kansas. So here it's 2025. You have Rollins saying on Fox News, this is the greatest area. We can't get an exchange to list a contract that can do more than a 10 lot. And we can't do options currently in spring wheat. It's really, we'll say the word conundrum. We're going backwards a little bit.
I have some concern about the survivability of the Minneapolis Grain Exchange. Because in June, you said it started. I think spring wheat prices are down more than any other market. And from what I can see, that other market that they've started is 40 or 50 cents lower than spring wheat and drops and leads it down all the time. I think that's cost spring wheat growers 50 cents a bushel maybe. And it looks to me like they're trying to run the Minneapolis Grain Exchange out of business. And maybe they're going to succeed. And actually, I think what they've done so far, it looks like they've done a pretty good job.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, the Minneapolis Grain Exchange building in downtown Minneapolis is vacant. It's a black box.
You can have a wedding there. I had a client have a wedding there. It's a very nice wedding.
I bet.
Yeah,
It's
but
it's a
but
computer.
it's a black box.
It's a
Yeah.
computer. One computer can
Yeah.
run the entire Minneapolis Grain Exchange. What we
Right.
all toured 30 years ago with guys standing in the pit, one computer is running, maybe with one backup. And actually, probably so is most of the other grain markets in the world. So
It's only the bond market you get to enjoy the Chicago Mercantile Exchange now anymore. Everything else a black box.
So yeah, that's a completely different world. But I think, spring wheat is in some big trouble on there.
Can I add on that a little bit? We're having some of those same problems in the feeder cattle market. Someone will come in and, you guys, we all know people, they'll say, they decide today, I'm ready to get hedged. Okay, go buy this put. Okay, you will move the market. And the liquidity, I know so many people who've had a hard time trading commodities this year. What do you do when you lose trading? The rule is discipline starts with unit size. If you're getting your butt kicked, you trade smaller. You trade smaller until you get your mojo back. And so many people in the markets have done poorly this year. When you look at CTA's commodity trading advisories, and I'm sure there's some people have done well, but most people I know have done bad, that they've cut their unit down, and so now we're seeing a liquidity problem. So we start LRP, that's a good thing, okay, if you think it's a good thing, but now the way that's playing off the liquidity in the feeder cattle, I just feel like the feeder cattle market's become...
That's a big one, Tommy. We also do LRPs at heartlandinvest.com because we saw it years ago already happening, because we have clients that were just getting away from the options and they chose the LRP route, and that has pulled a lot away. Even though LRPs still go back to being hedged via options, it's a program you have to have your order, you have to have your contract signed by 8 a.m. It still gets played into the options, but in a different way how they do it. And so with that, it's not the individuals constantly, every day, throughout the hour, options going in, providing liquidity minute after minute, hour after hour. It's a one-shot deal during the day, and then it's left to just be air.
Again, a reminder, if you have any questions, I always find the best questions come from the audience, so give us a wave, and we'd love to have your questions asked on mic if we could. Ray?
Actually, Don, I'm going to make a point. The gold market has gone to new 6,000-year highs again this week. Gold was previously at its high of $2,100 per ounce. Now we're trading nearly $3,700 an ounce.
Yeah, we crossed it today.
Big bull market in gold, and almost nothing else is going up. I would like to hear Tommy and Gene's analysis of why.
Silver, when President Trump announced that tariff thingy, the gold-silver ratio went to 100 to 1, which was wild. I always remember as a kid watching it, trading at 50 to 1, and that's finally coming back. Although gold's going up, silver's doing equally as well. And as far as any other markets going up, I can't think of anything as dynamic right now as gold. Obviously, how dynamic cattle was.
Feeder cattle.
Feeder cattle, right. And they still might be in, we didn't make any more cattle today.
No.
We just went down in price.
Well, I think there's maybe, and I said on the network, by deduction. I'm not saying what I am implying is true or not. It's just when you watch feeder cattle drop the $9.25 limit without any bounce at all and just lock up, and then for the next several hours, live cattle struggle to go, they didn't even try to go limit down $45. It tells me, okay, it's not a live cattle thing, because if it's live cattle, that would be a Brazilian tariff coming off, and here comes the beef, so to speak, out of Brazil. It's not that. It's a feeder cattle thing. What can send feeder cattle sharply lower if President Rollins isn't running pass for President Trump, who on Sunday got kind of beat up by a reporter asking him about beef and the high price of beef? And I wouldn't be shocked President Trump went back and on Monday said, okay, what's going on here with this beef? Why, blah, 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 blah. And maybe something is afoot that Rollins is going to now, since we instituted that we're going to build a plant down in Texas, creating all our own flies instead of Panama and Mexico providing the sterile flies to fight the New World screwworm, maybe work at some way of bringing these feeders back in the United States. Keep in mind, when they shut the border back up again, one animal was found about 200 plus miles south of the southernmost part of Texas, but was 100 some miles north of the known range of the New World screwworm. One animal. Now, President Bashir's response to it, and I have to give her credit to it, she said, the fact that we found it within 100 miles of the contained area shows our protocol is working. Kind of like we say with BSE, we don't worry about BSE anymore. Remember, BSE used to be limit down, limit down, limit down, limit down, mad cow disease. Now we say, well, so we found it. Protocol works. It's not going into the food system, so don't worry about it. Well, President Bashir can say the same thing. Protocol worked. They found one animal, not 100 animals, running wild and footloose and fancy free. It was transported. It got out of the containment area, and that shut the border back up again. Now, for those that are in the cattle industry here, I'm not anti-cattle prices, which is an amazing price that they are, but having been a cattle producer, I know what it's like to try to get a calf to suck at 2 in the morning, get a wet tail slap in your face, well, I got this calf over a straw bale. It's hard work, it's tough work. And, but at the same time, as a producer, we don't want to have what's occurring now, and that's demand destruction. I mean, the cure for high prices is high prices, and the verticalness that these prices have gone, and good luck, buying calves and try to hedge them off, it's not happening. All you're doing is hedging the board, you're not hedging a profit, and so that's that game. But having said all that, we don't want to see the prices so high that people learn to like gravy on pork chops again, and chicken marsalis or something like that, or shrimp scampi. Demand destruction is not what a cattle producer wants, and so we've kind of, most cattle guys I know are in agreement, so don't be angry at me if you don't like what I'm saying. But we got to get to a point where we don't want them that high to destroy our market. So maybe, just maybe, we're going to hear if what I'm saying has any litmus test. Within 24 to 36 hours, we're going to hear something from Rollins that we're working on some way of opening the border up. Maybe it's, a couple thousand ahead a week this week out of this one, out of Texas or New Mexico, and it's another slow opening. But feeder cattle have been so stout, so robust, that to just drop the limit and live cattle look over at it and say, oh, well, too bad for you, there's something bigger coming here. And I play poker, okay? So there's a telltale to me. Something's coming. And I suspect it's something to do with the Mexican border. We'll see. In 36 hours, we'll know.
Well, they opened that border once, and it stayed open for, what, a
One
week
day.
or so? Or
Yeah,
what?
it was
It
literally a
wasn't
day.
even a week. Okay.
Maybe 36 hours.
So what kind of confidence do you have that it would stay shut or stay open if they did reopen it?
I would say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I think when it opens this time, the protocols are going to be exceptionally tight. I think they're going to get affirmations from the Mexican side that they will maintain a high. Well, we're not going to let it happen unless they let U.S. officials down there watching. Of course, cartels are going to be wanting to take these guys out because they're going to say, well, they're DEA anyway. But that said, I think there's going to be a high level of surveillance taking place if that is the case. Again, I'm not saying that's the story. It's my deduction of what's happening, how the price took place. And if that is the story in the next 36 hours, then that is somehow, some way it's going to open, and it's going to stay open this time. But very slowly, not 100,000 head a month, which is what we're used to.
I want to circle back what Ray brought up earlier about gold in record territory. Gold's always that safe haven. Is that a reflection of the economy itself, or why is gold as strong as it is, and what does that mean?
At one time, I thought, we had, a $2 trillion deficit per year. We're at 35, 36 trillion in debt. And if you figure at 2% interest, that's like $720 billion a year. But now put at that 6% interest, which we just did in the last 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden, that's 3 times more. So that's what, 2.1 trillion is the interest cost of that debt. We only raised 4 or 5 trillion in taxes, so now half your taxes are going. Now double the interest rate to 12%. We've seen 20 before in agriculture and killed us in 1980s. So you take it even to 10%, the United States is bankrupt. Mm-hmm. At that point, our currency becomes worthless, and there's, I think, what was driving the gold market. But some things have been resolved somewhat. This tariff money coming in, whether Tommy likes it or not, it's still revenue to our government, and that does help.
There's talk of cutting a check maybe to every family in the United States with the tariff money. There's been talk about that. And so I don't know if that gets any ground.
Real quick to add to what Ray's saying, because I stood in the bond pit for 15 years, so I actually understand this. But during COVID, we artificially made interest rates go really low. Not just America, but all. Ray just explained America's situation. It's way worse in other countries, but COVID is officially 5 years behind us. Interest rates around the world went artificially low, and governments of those countries borrowed money at 5-year bills, 6, 7-year term, and all that debt is coming back, and it's resetting, and it's going to reset at such a high price. So that's why just last week, UK's bonds went to 27-year highs. Everyone's like, what's going on in UK? They all have the same problem. It's bad enough you put the money on your credit card. Now your credit card went up. But you didn't put $10,000 on a credit card. So if our debt's 30 billion, they put 12, 15, with a T. We financed 15, 16 trillion dollars at 3%, and our government over the next few months has to go reborrow that from.
That's why Trump is trying to push the interest rates
as
down.
fast as he can. And Gold's calling BS. Gold's like, I see what you're doing over there. We're going to do our own thing, and you can't stop us.
But to take off from what you're saying, the U.S. dollar has stumbled under par. It's trading today about 97.5. It's been holding stout for quite some time because the dollar's doing all the lifting, it's doing the running. But eventually, the dollar is going to break, not go up. It's going to break with all this more debt that they want to stimulate and create. That what happens when the dollar gets in a downward spiral? Eventually, it comes to the commodity, the ags. We've seen feeder cattle and gold and silver take all the limelight right now. Crude oil's on a hiatus right now. but the grain trade could start seeing our dollar help keep advantage from Spain, Morocco, all these places that are buying our corn now that have never bought our corn before. We could start getting into that flux again. It's not an overnight thing. This stuff takes time. And
actually, I want to make a point too. You know, I watched the markets this summer, and I thought we're going to bottom and we're going to go up, and we're going to have a nice run in this summer. And actually, the problem we ran into, I think the grain markets would have loved to have gone up this year because of this background thing we're seeing in the gold market and feeder cattle. But we kept getting a better and better crop and better potential. And actually, you know, USDA is at 188, which shatters our previous record by 8 bushel. And it was August they came out with that. I was shocked it was that big. But I think the markets have a background. They want to go up. But the problem was with the grains, we had a very good crop growing and developing. And it improved all the way into basically September. Last week was the first week we saw it drop on corn and soybeans, but they were already, you know, 3, 4, 5% above trend. We had a big wheat, you know, relatively good winter wheat crop, not spring, but winter. I think grains would have gone up this year, but we had a good crop. That's why if we get this crop under storage somewhere, at whatever price we end up with, I think we can go up a lot, especially as low as we are.
well, I'll take Ray's comment. I'll take the opposite side of Ray on the size of corn. We'll agree to disagree there.
Yeah, okay.
But I think we end up in the same scenario of strength, because the reality is, in the last 20 years, we've had huge grain crops, yet the price of corn goes up. Why? All you had to do was look at the U.S. dollar. What was the U.S. dollar doing since the year 2000? Granted, 2003 brought about ethanol, kind of shift gears there a little bit on how things work. But still, we've had prior years with big carryouts, yet the dollar was in the tank. I feel sorry for the bears. The price just goes up. And so with that, the U.S. dollar into the new year, if it is falling under 90, there's kind of like a threshold in the chart. If we start falling under 9,600, you're in the low 90s. We're doing bigger grain sales than we are doing right now. And by the way, everybody's been predicting our corn sales to go to zero. We've been holding at 2 million metric tons a week on grain sales. Old crop cancellations are not uncommon as we get into September, as we're finishing out the end of the last year, but they roll in the new crop. These sales are phenomenal. And the prospects of then maintaining going forward is going to, with the Gulf, with the Mississippi right now, could make it very challenging if the buyers are willing to pay for the extra transportation costs, because they just can't load out the barges. They still move, just can't load them as heavy, and it just increases the cost. But that said, 6 months from now, we get into the winter. When does corn rally? It rallies after harvest. Even if it bottoms early, it takes a while, but she rallies into February and May. And why does it peak in May? Usually by June 9th is that cutoff date, because that's when we know the Brazilian safrinha corn crop's been made, and she's going to get harvested in about 4 to 6 weeks. And so it just rolls over and our corn market dies. We always think, well, it's our weather. No, we die and then we pop on our weather. But the Brazilian crop, once she's made, that's why these first and second quarter rallies are February through May. That's your window. And if we got a weak dollar, it just helps add to some kind of upward potential.
So Tommy, there we go. Now we're getting more bullish and more friendly.
No, I like it. It's good for me too. I have a futures and options account. I have the best job in the world. I don't have to buy a bag of seed from Pioneer to go be long 1 million bushels. I can just click my phone right here and go do it. I don't have to buy crop insurance. One thing I want to ask a question, and these two are going to fight over it, but no, it's not a fight. It's just a conversation. But my last few speeches I've done the last few weeks, my topic was $4 corn's not your problem. I'm not worried that corn's $4. We've traded a lot cheaper in my life. We've traded a lot higher. But when you look at the cost production, one thing this group has not talked about today, they're arguing over yield. They didn't talk about how much money the American farmer had to spend to get that yield. So everyone's insurance is driving me nuts. Me personally, my house insurance, my auto insurance, my life insurance, that went up, but the price of the goods you're selling are going down, and that's hurting you. So is $4 corn your problem? No. Corn could go to 5, but I promise you, if corn goes to 5, your cost production is going to go up increasingly as fast. And so the one thing we focus on as brokers or analysts or traders is we're like, yield, and if the USDA is wrong, corn's going to go up. No one's ever having the conversation, how do we get the farmer's cost of production down? I don't have an answer for it, because I don't sell crop insurance, I don't sell auto insurance, I don't sell seed, I don't own land to rent, I don't make equipment. So all the things and many people have a lifestyle that's went up during the good years. I'm not married to your wife, or married to your husband. Matter of fact, the husbands are worse than the wives, ladies. They're buying stuff they don't need. Keep an eye on them. But that, to me, if you want to know where the equity bleed went, I don't care if corn goes to $4.50. The cost of production was so high this year that the equity bleed, when I sit at the bank at my office at First State Bank in Mayville, North Dakota here, and when I see people's numbers get flipped, and I say, how'd that nice farmer lose $500,000? It wasn't because of his or her production. It was because the cost of capitals went up. So when we talk about the United States government cost of capital going up threefold, we're correct me, year 3 of higher operating?
Mm-hmm, yep.
And we're going to lower, but let me note to the room, the last time the Fed lowered rates, they lowered the short end, but the long end popped. So the Federal Reserve lowered rates. The yield on the 10-year was at 3.9 or 4%, and a month later we were at 4.50. That again is the market calling BS on the problem. It said you lowered rates, well the long end's here. The Fed controls the short end. That's what President Trump's so desperately trying to get down, but the long end is exploding because of our bad policy. And whether it's United States government or an individual farmer, that's where the equity burn is going.
To that end, I look at this crowd, and we got a big group of young people in this audience. I was around in the 80s, and we lost a crop of young people coming into this business. How do we keep a future for these people, whether it's risk management or working in the market? What do we do to make sure that they're here?
Marry well.
Yeah. I could take.
That's a variation of the theme. Buy low.
You all know what a plat
sell
book is?
high, and marry rich, right? That's.
I knew
that's
I
the
loved
old
her the
saying.
second I saw that section.
Beyond that, I'll say this to them. You know, the focus over the last 30 years has been the efficiencies of production and the maximizing production. Yet no capital has been grown or expended on marketing plans. You know, banks literally have to be trained to understand, okay, a farmer comes in, yeah, if I loan him $500,000, he's just going to speculate with it. No. The bank, as we get lined up with our clients, the bank is on the account. They get copies of all the statements, and they have to be behind it. And if you have the opportunity to sell, we made some 470 corn sales, you know, like scary, you know, early in the year doing that, but you've got to have a bank behind it. And the point is, okay, we're going to make a 25% sell at 470. We can make money on that on the board, less the basis. And the reality is, if this thing goes to 520, the bank's got to be behind you. So you're not margined out, and you can keep selling higher and higher and higher and stair-step your average up. So the best thing I can say to you right now is, yes, technology is always going to be important. Yes, seed is always going to be important. But the new frontier is learning to market and marketing with your financial guidance, because you're gonna have a bank. Unless you marry well, you're going to need a bank. And banks like to have statements. Yes, I guess that's right. That's true. Yes. I have a client. He's a large farmer in North Dakota. I don't care if you know him or not. But he went to UND because he said, I'm going to know, you probably know. He says, I want to know what the banks need to see, and I'll just hire the NDSU graduates to do my farming. And that's kind of how he works. He is on top of the markets, and he is always looking at taking advantage of opportunities, because marketing is your new frontier. Don't miss out on that.
I always thought you shouldn't go to UND because you don't want to be there's plenty of vacuum cleaner salesmen. You want to actually know agriculture.
Where'd you get your law degree, right?
But anyway, actually, that you made a lot of good points about the financial side. And actually, there's on the insurance side, do you know, like the Big Beautiful Bill and one before that is throwing all kinds of money in agriculture. And it's not just a short-term deal. So there are subsidies on crop insurance that are going to 95% next year for beginning farmers, the first 2 years. And now it's a 10-year deal instead of 5. Actually, for a new farmer, I can probably get a new farmer 10 to 20% higher yields and pay 10 to 20%, maybe even with that subsidy, 30% less than the first generation, than their father. A new farmer can actually farm with less risk than the first generation. And so there's some big things happening there. I think you do, if you don't have somebody who understands that, it's important to do that, especially at the beginning stage.
Real quick and combine what
Yeah.
you're talking about. So if you do what Ray's saying, which I agree,
Or marry well, like Tommy.
that's nice too. I didn't get that end of the trade. But then
My wives did.
people are depending so much on that insurance that they're actually getting worse at what Eugene's talking about. So people are depending on the insurance. I'm going to say to this room, I think you've all got worse at marketing the last few years. Because when the Ukraine war happened, we had such good times here in North Dakota because we grow all those products that they grow in the Ukraine that they couldn't grow. Sunflowers, canola, edibles, just everything we grew here became so valued that we actually let down our guard, and now you add better insurance. So I believe what you're saying. I know what you're saying is true. Buy the better insurance, but then it's taking away from the marketing place. So when I meet clients and say, can I help you do some hedging? They go, I just bought up better insurance. Well, there's things you could do to add, but I know commodity brokers, and that's why every commodity broker is getting registered insurance, is that whether it's a put, a call, or insurance, they just want to be able to sell you some type of coverage. But I've seen people get worse in marketing the last few years. I don't think it's a speculation. I'm sure, because I've watched Eugene speak 10 years ago. He had the same message, and I've seen people go backwards. And it's obvious when they come to, I want to say one other point. From someone who's hosted live national TV for a long time here, helping out at RFD TV, was in the spring, when the camera comes on, the red light's on, there's 30,000 people watching. Every analyst who would come on, I'd say, what are you telling people in corn? And they would say one thing, we're telling them to do nothing because it's below their cost of production. And all I was thinking was, man, this harvest is going to be a shit show when all this corn gets sold. Not only, they don't want to sell $4.75 because that's it, break even or loss. They're going to sell $3.75, right? And so if you're paying too much for free information, that's all I could tell you, because I would sit there every day and go, I can't believe this guy said do nothing, do nothing, do nothing, or girl. And so as these analysts, which I am, and a broker, and someone who owns a media company and does media, was watching people set you up to fail.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a statement or a point. I just wanted to say I watched this train wreck happen. I didn't help it happen, but being on live TV, it's your job not to embarrass the guest. So I can't say to that guest, oh, thank you, Mr. Ray. Boy, are you going to have a problem up north when everyone dumps it at harvest when we don't have a trade deal. Because when you're on live TV, you don't embarrass your guests. It's just not classy, right? But I wish I would have, because I could have helped a lot of farmers.
A point about Tommy said, even though like last year when the set price for corn was $4.92 and everybody was buying 85%, you forget when the price collapses, it's because your yield, it's price times yield, and usually it's the yield that makes sure you don't get an insurance check. You got your revenue. Yeah, but I didn't get my $4.92 like I thought. No, you got your revenue. And that's why the grain trade, everybody's always, everything goes up, but they were selling corn for $3 an X, 20 years ago. Yeah, but what was the yield 20 years ago? So we don't look at grain. We should almost trade the contracts as revenue. We should just pick a county in Iowa, whatever, and that's the corn contract. Those yield times the price, and we're going to trade that revenue, and that's going to be a futures contract. Hey, maybe we should start that.
We should
create a futures contract like the Minneapolis Grain Exchange. Let's go get a little black box, and we're going to trade Central Iowa yield times price, and that's this price. We're going to trade that acreage revenue, and that's a new way of looking at it, and that's what insurance is about. So it's not a marketing plan. It's just to make sure you can pay your bills, is what it is.
And actually that it expires. You buy this insurance, your coverage is only from February if you're using the regular revenue, or September on the MCO, but it expires at harvest. If you didn't do anything there, now you're naked, unprotected, you have all the risk, and if you have ignored all your marketing, now you've got you use the right word, shit show. You've got a shit show because you still have to market the crop. But I have seen that too, Tommy, that when people buy that coverage, they neglect to actually do anything on the marketing side, just expecting everything to work out. And it doesn't, especially if your base is
because the policy has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
It ends, and you have to market. That policy is just set up to protect you if you don't produce the grain that you sold.
The check is based off of when she expires in October. With that's the check is cut. And if you own your corn, it goes down to the 34 cents. Well, that's your problem.
Yeah, that's limited risk management. You still have to market your crop. We've always said that, but does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Love this conversation. Just quickly wrap up, tell everybody where they can find you online or get in touch with you.
Sure. New website out, AG Bull. It's similar to this young man's. Yeah, we're going to swap our websites. www.agbull and then Agbull Media on all the social medias and YouTube and whatnot like that.
Gene?
Yeah, ours is easy to remember, heartlandinvest.com, heart like in your chest. We put our heart in our work, heartlandinvest.com. If you go to the website on your phone or whatever, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial of our newsletter. We are a brokerage firm, advisory service through our CTA, and as well as we sell crop insurance and livestock risk protection insurance. heartlandinvest.com.
ProgressiveAg.com. We actually have a booth over in the building just across
Hartle
there.
building.
Yeah, the Hartle building. So, we do have a video that you can get for the year for the 6 months, and we're giving that away at the show. I would highly encourage you. It takes 10 minutes a week, and it will force you to make marketing decisions, and I think that's the best thing we've ever done.
Just for the record, I'm not giving away anything for free. All right? I'm done working for free. I got 2 kids in college. Thank you.
Tommy Grisafi from Ag Bull Trading, Gene Graner, Heartland Investor Services, and Ray Grabanski from Progressive Ag. Please put your hands together and share your appreciation.
It's all about nutrient efficiency, right?
Exactly.
I've taught you all the things that you know.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
I'm Sherry Cook. I'm passionate about helping farmers with crop nutrition, and I'm here to help you with your operation.